we're going to give you an opportunity to print your own fabric. So you'll have just a plain white piece of muslin. I'm going to show you how to make a stamp that can be stamped all over the fabric to create your own print. So if we can imagine that this was a stamp, or maybe two stamps, one for the red and one for the star here, and it was repeatedly stamped in this pattern, you're going to have the opportunity to make your own print. And you could make more than one stamp if you want. So the first step to that is to choose the size that you want for your stamp, and you'll choose that by picking one of these pieces of what's called scratch foam. And I'm going to put it on a scrap of paper and just trace it so that I know what size to make my design. I don't want to go right into the scratch foam because if I make a mistake I can't fix it. And then I'll just draw out a design, and I like to think about a quarter of a design, that way I can rotate it, or a half, so that it will go together in an interesting way. So for this one I'm just going to draw a line like this, and I think I'm going to make kind of a flower pattern. Now with scratch foam you get two colors when you do a print, white and whatever color you paint on there. So anything that I'm going to shade in my design is going to be white. I know this is very confusing, but it'll make sense in just a moment. So anything I shade in will be white, and anything that I leave white in my design will end up being the color of the paint that I choose to use. So I'll just kind of do this quickly so you get the idea. Once I have a design that I enjoy, and I'm going to add a line here, then I'm going to cut it out and I will tape it to my piece of scratch foam. So once I have it taped to my scratch foam, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to push pretty hard. I don't want a super sharp pencil, a dull pencil works a little bit better. And I'm going to trace my whole design. Once I'm done tracing my whole design, it's not going to be deep enough to print yet. It is going to be just a little light line kind of indented into my foam. So I lift it up and I can see my design. So what I want to do now is go back over it. So I'm going to go over it, and I would go over this whole thing. And then the parts that I wanted to keep white, I would shade in. So we'll go to a pretend world where I traced over this whole thing. I want this to be white, so I'm going to trace over this whole thing. I'm going to push really hard. My goal is to push the foam down. So here's a finished one that I did, and I actually had made two kind of the same design. And I'm ready to test it. So what I do is I'm going to glue it to a piece of cardboard the same size so I have something to hold on to. I'm just going to get a piece of paper because I don't want to mess up my fabric. So a little piece of scrap paper and some paint. So I'm going to use a sponge brush. I don't want a lot of paint on here, otherwise it'll goop into the cracks of my stamp. So I'm just going to paint over my stamp and give it a test. And so there you can see where I colored in, there is no paint because I pushed that foam down. So I like to rotate my stamp, so I'll just show you how you can kind of rotate a stamp to get an interesting pattern. Uh-oh, I got a little too much goop in there. Sometimes you get a little too much and you may have to dab it off a little. And let's see if I can get one more stamp out of this guy. He had a lot of paint on there. And I would just continue doing this until I filled my whole piece of fabric. I could also make another stamp, and if I want to change colors I can. I just need to clean off my stamp with a damp piece of paper towel. So here's the other one that I had made, and it prints like this, and I haven't tested this one yet. Sometimes when you test it you realize that you need to do a little bit more work. So right here where I'm getting that paint, I'll clean this off and then go back with my pencil and push it down a little bit further. So that's how you make a stamp to print your own textile.